Good morning, John, and thank you
Good-
very much for making the
good
time to be
Thank you,
interviewed.
Juliet. My pleasure.
I'd just like to begin this oral history recollection of yours. Maybe we'll start with talking about your law school studies and entering law school and when you did.
I entered the law school in February 1936. No, I beg your pardon, 37. And the dean was then Sir John Peden. It was, as you know, it was the only law school in New South Wales at that time, and the only way of doing law except through the Barristers Admission Board or the Solicitor Admission Board.
Right. And the interesting thing I understand about the law school in those days, many of the lecturers were actually practitioners,
Most
not
of them
just
were.
academics.
Most were. Sir John Peden, of course, was not, but my first lecturer was in contracts was Bernard Sugarman, later on became a judge, and Roman law, which is another subject in first year, was Tom Slattery, with an F, not an S.
That's right. Also Alan Taylor, who became a High Court judge later on?
He did. He was lecturing in legal interpretation in the second year of the law school.
Right. And you also had, I understand, in equity, Victor Windire?
Victor Windier, yes, he did not lecture me. He had been lecturer. I can't remember precisely who our lecturer was in equity. It was a barrister, but most of the courses were lectures were delivered by barristers or a solicitor. Mr. Watt was a conveyancer. He did a conveyancing in the fourth year. The only two permanent ones, I think, were Professor Archie Charteris, who did political science and public international law. And
I guess the advantage of having so many practitioners lecturing to you is you would have felt very much closer to the cut and thrust of law than if it had been simply academics.
They were practical men. Another lecturer was Vernon Triet. He lectured in criminal law. He later on became leader of the opposition in the New South Wales Parliament. And Wilfred McMinn did pleading. And strangely enough, in our final year, our lecturer was one of the former students almost when I started. It was Frank Hutley. He lectured in private international law and jurisprudence.
He would have been quite a young man at that time.
He was, absolutely, probably in his late 20s.
Did you like to remind him much later of what he was like as a lecturer?
No, Frank and I never got around to discussing those topics.
So what kind of a student do you think you were during those years?
Average. But, I was not doing articles. Article clerks were the ones who got the most out of it because I was a public servant at the time and one of perhaps quite a few public servants who kept to a time schedule.
Yeah, so they were busy days for you, I know. You had a very full working day.
Well, yes, but those days we were allowed time off to do lectures, but we had to make up that time.
And in those days too, you'd always wanted to study law, but you got into the study of law in a rather interesting way, didn't you?
Yes, I guess I did. Well, I left school in fourth year and then did private study with the help of my old school to continue with enough subjects to get me to matriculate. And that happened, of course, when I got the offer of a job in 1935 in the New South Wales Public Service.